for a moment.
God misled Job.
First of all, in the end of the book, his family comes to him and meets with him and say they knew what had happened and that this had come from God. You have taken a kind of genre of literature called wisdom literature,
yes,
which has a scaffolding of a dramatic, poetic nature. And the one thing Job wanted in that, his entire search, he got. What was it?
He wanted to know why he was suffering.
No, he wanted an audience with God.
Well, he appealed to God to find out why he was suffering.
He wanted an audience with God.
Yes.
And he got it. And he established once and for all that answers in the realm of suffering may not always be immediately and comprehensively explainable, but the relational factor with God exceeded any propositional answer that one could find.
But in this case, I agree with you in the general case. I mean, if someone's wife and family are killed by a drunk driver, well, your answer is correct. But in the case of Job, we absolutely know why Job suffered. And it's because God made this bet. And God didn't tell him. God could have told him, but God misled him.
You're assuming he doesn't know that. There's many times characters in Bibles gave the details and explained the details to writers, even if he didn't write it. Mm-hmm. But I don't want to dominate the discussion. I see Bill Craig's got some questions he'd like to ask too.
I was interested in your comments on slavery being permitted in the Old Testament,
it's
but
regulated.
now, yes, that's right. It was regulated so as to prevent abuse of slaves. There was a Jubilee year where they could be released and so forth. But today we know better, and we abhor slavery today. And you said that it wasn't just that these ancient Hebrews had a different set of moral values than we do, but that we have a better set of moral values than they did. Now, that's an interesting value judgment that you're making. And I'd like to know, on an atheistic, naturalistic worldview, on what basis can you make that value judgment between these two separate societies and cultures?
Why do I think a society is better that doesn't have slaves?
Yes, why is our set of values which abhor slavery superior to any other cultures which adheres to slavery? Why characterize this as a moral improvement rather than just a difference?
Well, it certainly is a difference, and the reason I think it's a moral improvement is that all of us have things to offer, and slavery denies large numbers of people the chance to achieve everything that they have to offer to us. And I happen to think we live in a pluralistic society, and the essence of our society is that everyone gets a chance to contribute. Everyone gets the chance to throw out their ideas.
But that wasn't the essence of ancient Hebrew society, right? I mean,
oh, no.
So why are you imposing our values on them?
Oh, I'm not criticizing them for having slaves. That's their society, and that was where, you know, but the point I'm making is that there's no place where it's written in stone, here are the moral values by which we should all live for all time.
So you can't really condemn slavery on an atheistic, naturalistic worldview, can you?
That's right.
No, I do.
But
I do. I think slavery is wrong. I think it's a bad thing.
But isn't that just an expression of your own socio-cultural situation that you were born in this?
That's right.
So it doesn't have any objective sort of validity.
No, it comes from our society. That's why I said that all of us, I'll give you an example. Today, right today, we are arguing about whether or not it is moral for the president to have lied about his sexual relationship. We're arguing about that. Is that a moral thing or not? We ourselves, all of us today, the senators, all of us who are voters, we are deciding whether what he did was a moral thing or not. And that's the way morals are created.
Dr. Mohanty.
Yeah, it seems to me that your questioning, and also Dr. Zacharias' wonderful argument he gave before, I find there are many missing links. Of course, you could develop your entire argument, just as I cannot develop my entire critique. But I think you passed on very quickly, and also implicit in your question to him, that accepting objective moral values means that you need a source of a lawgiver. I think I am willing, perhaps I differ from the physicist in this regard, I'm willing to accept objective moral values, but I still do not find any compelling argument that if I accept objective moral values, there must be a lawgiver.
But he doesn't even accept objective moral
No,
values.
I know that. I know that. I know
Right.
that.
In fact, I would
know
say,
he does not.
And I would say, if you believe that you have some set of objective moral values, I would say, well, why should I believe that you have them? I mean, how are you going to know? Well, you're going to have to do the same thing as anybody else who has relative moral values to try to show why your values are better and right and they work correctly and they have this, all of those things you'll have to go, you can't tell the difference between absolute objective values and relative ones. It's just a fact.
You don't think that you can tell that we ought to love a child rather than torture and sexually abuse a child?
I think that's a good idea, to love a child. I think it's a good idea. It arises from our biological heritage. It's natural and normal for us.
But one isn't morally different from the other?
No, I think it's that they're morally different. It's bad to inflict harm. That's why I criticize God in the book of Job. He has inflicted unmerited, undeserved suffering on totally innocent people.
And you think
admits
that's
it
wrong
himself.
of God?
I think that's wrong of God.
On what basis do you make that value judgment?
I think it's bad to inflict suffering and a harm on other people.
Why?
What do you mean, why? I mean,
Why is that wrong on a naturalistic worldview? The Nazis thought it was all right to do that to
so they
to
did.
Jews.
They did, and that's because morals are created by societies. And that society created a system that made those people see with such hatred. And we have many differences in moral opinions. In some Asian societies, such as in China and Japan, they're much more communitarian-oriented than we are, and we're very individualistically oriented. Well, I mean, do I think that there's some place where it's written, here it is, you're supposed to be individualistic? I don't think so. Let's take specific example to discuss it. Is divorce moral? Let's ask that. Is divorce moral? In your absolute moral code, is divorce moral?
Well,
I think the issue here is anything, not just divorce, is anything right or wrong? And by your own philosophy, nothing is.
Now, you haven't answered my question.
No. Why divorce?
This is a pretty well-known debating tactic here. And I want to know, is divorce moral? That's the question. I'll answer that one. That's a yes or no question.
Very briefly, the Bible does lay down certain conditions prohibiting divorce and allowing divorce under other conditions. So, I mean, that's just a matter of, you can look in the Gospels and see what Jesus said. But honestly, Dr. Lycan, this isn't a debating tactic or trick. This is a fundamental philosophical question. Right. On the one hand, you want to make value judgments like God was wrong to do this to Job. Right. Slavery was abhorrent. We have improved morally over this other culture. Right. The Nazis were wrong. Right. And yet, on the other hand, out of the other side of your mouth, you're affirming moral relativism. You have no transcendent anchor for these values, and hence you're lost in a sea of sociocultural relativism.
You were correct in everything you said till you said I was lost.
All right.
That's why we invited you here.
Dr. Lycan, we'll give you the last comment here, and we're going to move on.
We here today are the children of the intellectual children of the ancient Greeks and the modern Enlightenment and the scientific revolution and the new ideas of democratic thought. All of us here, American citizens, and these things, including our religious values, form what today we think are a proper moral code. And if we were brought up somewhere else, if we were brought up in Japan or India or somewhere else, we would have different views as to what was proper moral behavior. And that's why you and I both agree that it's wrong to torment your children.
Representing now the Christian world